Hello, 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 and welcome to the College of Creation. My name is Dan.
And my name is Michael.
And we are Dungeons & Dragons DMs who love to homebrew items, spells, creatures, and features for D&D. And this is a show where we make new stuff every single week. Usually, Michael and I grab a prompt from our list of prompts from our community, and we try and make things ourselves, and then we come here and we present what we've created over the past week. But this week's going to be a little bit different, as we've taken a prompt and decided that we're going to come together and work on this one as a team.
I like it. I'm glad we decided to do this prompt this way. I don't know if I would have been able to come up with something that encompasses everything that the prompt had within it.
It is definitely a little bit more of a complex prompt that I think both of us really wanted to take a big picture approach to.
Yeah.
So the prompt that we came up with, or that we took from our list this week, was a series of magical paintings whose effect is determined by the colors of the paints within the paintings. And so it was kind of, is this a magical item? Are the paints the magical part? Are the paintings the magical part? There's just a lot of potential there, I think. But it feels like a really large and interesting idea that I'm excited to sink our teeth into.
And there is some precedent already in the game for paintings or portraits specifically. There are some magic items that are portraits. That is not the way that I see this going.
Yeah.
The way that I see this is stationary paintings on a wall with some effect on them, around them, within them, in a gallery of sorts.
Yeah, it definitely called to mind for me a gallery. It was a set, right? There was something to this that felt like it wanted to be a coherent set, which also to me speaks to the idea that what you're creating here is something that a story and some lore is built around, right?
Correct.
When I think of things that are like items that are sets of items, my brain immediately jumps to, well, why are they all connected? And there must be like a lore reason for where these spawned from, and how they work together and stuff like that. So it almost feels like we have to come up with a story at the same time as coming up with
right.
with the actual creation itself.
Yeah, I thought the same thing at first, only because we have talked about this on multiple episodes at this point. I thought, what if Arcanotech Industries had a mural room somewhere where they house all of their hidden magics, and this was like the key to all of their technology is they have all of these paintings. And because all of these paintings are in the same area, the magic is so powerful that they have all these creations. I don't like that idea. I don't like that the idea is tied to Arcanotech Industries. I think that is not the way to go here. But in my musings along that line, I do think that because all of the paintings are together, they are more powerful in greater number. I like the idea of them being all together in a gallery, and because they are together, that is where they are able to harness the highest potential within their power set.
Yeah, and I think the other piece of the prompt, aside from the paintings, is that the effects specifically are determined by the colors within them, right? Like
by the
that
colors.
Was a core piece
by the colors
of the prompt. And of course, when I think... So my first thoughts when it comes to thinking about color within the framework of D&D, but also generally, are twofold. One is the idea of color theory is sort of a thing that I think about. I did a little bit of graphic design in my early undergrad and did not keep up with it. But, color theory is something that you start to learn about pretty early on, the ideas of either complementary colors, analogous colors, sometimes triadic colors, and how those relationships change the way that we perceive things that are designed within that.
Yeah.
But then also in the framework of D&D, the first thing I always think about when it comes to colors is dragons.
Yeah.
There are a bunch of different kinds of colors of dragons, especially chromatic and metallic, but the chromatic ones are
Mm-hmm.
decidedly, color, and that color determines something about them, resistances and the damage type
Sure.
and stuff like that. But also, there is something of their lore that's encapsulated in that, right? As well, like
Mm-hmm.
red dragons are not likely to be found in like cold and snowy lands. That's more likely to be a white dragon. And green dragons also don't really occupy the water as much as like a blue dragon will be associated with
Sure.
water and things like that. And so those things are all tied together. Now I've done things like that already in past homebrewing, so I don't know if we want to bring dragons into this, but it is the first place my mind goes.
Sure. I mean, I think that color theory, especially, but also, tying our instinctual ideas regarding Dungeons and Dragons itself is a good place to start. I will say the first place that my brain went when I started thinking about this week was synesthesia. The idea that human beings with synesthesia, have the ability or perceived ability to kind of see auras of color around other people. And the color of the aura, whatever that color may be, kind of determines what that person's mood is at any given time. And each color has a different set of emotions and kind of features associated with it. A person with synesthesia can kind of foresee before asking that person how they're feeling or what they're thinking about. And I think that is very cool. I don't know how that would tie into paint on canvas. Anything that can give us a baseline with a predisposed set of rules
Yeah.
that we can kind of branch away from somewhere is a good place to start.
Yeah, I think these things can kind of work together, right? Like I have known
Yeah.
some people with various forms of synesthesia. Lots of people have various forms of them in terms of like
Mhm.
well-known artists and things are often talked about in this
Yeah.
space. I guess John Mayer experiences some sensation of uh, hearing sound and his brain interpreting it as color.
Yeah.
I've known other people who have connections to numbers, and a certain color will
Mhm.
appear. Also, other senses kind of commingling the opposite direction, seeing a color and associating it. Their brain will interact with it as a scent
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
something like that. Something like a certain blue will smell a certain way, or will call to mind at least the smell of a specific thing. So I do like the idea of using these colors in order to interact with the senses, maybe in an interesting way.
Yeah.
Twist around these ideas of both emotional state and sensory input as part of color. And then maybe just using the ideas of color theory to talk about like what things are maybe opposed, closer
Right.
to each other around maybe something like a color wheel. What it sounds like to me is that what we want to make here is a gallery.
So I'm thinking this is something that, to be transparent, you brought this as an idea the other day, and I don't know if we ever said yes or no to it. But thinking about color theory and how different colors can transport the senses, take us as living people with crazy unknown parts of our brains activating at whatever time. Uh, Colors can take us places in our minds. You proposed that possibly, based on colors used in these paintings, they could physically take people to other places. So a mental transportation, emotional, sensory transportation, but also a possibility for a physical transportation through the painting,
Yeah.
Super Mario 64 style.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think it's the kind of thing that would be.
It's very D&D.
I think there are a lot of cool directions that
Mm.
could go in, right? I think that that's the kind of thing that I
Yeah.
could put in my world very easily and say like, oh, you come upon a gallery and this gallery exists within like like a magical university or something like that, right? That just has like a long
Mm-hmm.
hall of paintings, and all of these paintings are of different colors, and they just serve as portals to other planes of existence or something, or other places in the world.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah, yeah.
cool. That's fine. It's not, I don't think, quite as in depth and rich as we want to do when it comes to home brewing, right? That's great
Right.
world building, but there might be something more here that I think might be worth unlocking. And I think
I
it does
agree.
lie in how they interact, maybe with each other, maybe with things like the senses. And we don't just say
Mm-hmm.
it's a straight up like portal to, somewhere, but it is in fact transportative in some more metaphysical way, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. Yep.
I don't know exactly how to pull it, but I do think it is fun to think about the idea of this gallery being a sort of core location through which the party can maybe potentially set an entire sort of campaign setting within the boundaries of a this gallery.
Yeah. A
Um,
single room for an entire campaign is a bonkers idea and so
but
cool.
having it sort of like either the space that they're in changes depending on a certain painting that they interact with, or
Mm-hmm.
they go further into it. But now that I'm saying it out loud, that's actually kind of a cool idea to like have the gallery be the thing that changes, right?
Yeah.
Instead of you being transported into a different world using the painting and interacting with the painting transforms the space around you instead.
Physically going somewhere is not a true one-to-one for that. But,
Right.
gazing upon the painting, communing with the painting, you spend 24 hours communing with the painting, and you are Dream of the Blue Veil style
Yeah.
transported
Something like
somewhere
that.
else.
Now this is so interesting because I think what we maybe need to nail down here is what are we making here? Are we making
Right.
a dungeon? Are we making
Are
a
we making
single
a dungeon?
encounter? Are we making a set of
Ooh.
magical items? What's happening here?
I like the idea of a dungeon. I like the idea of an encounter. I don't know if either of those,
Sure.
or really any single thing that we would make today, would encapsulate everything that the prompt requires.
Hmm.
And I think that what you said towards the beginning of the episode is absolutely correct. You have to kind of build the lore alongside whatever it is we're going to build today. This is much more tricky than the last thing we tried to live create, which was a subclass with
Right.
very specific leveled features, an established structure with a lot of precedent. So, what are we thinking for this setting? Is this an arcane type of magic? Is this divine? Are we linking this to a pantheon of deities per painting? Is it
Hmm.
strictly sensory? Do we have 5 paintings, one for each human sense?
Hmm. That's interesting. That's interesting because I was thinking about the paintings not being separated by sense, but instead being more I think emotional based on your kind of reading as auras, and probably something maybe closer to your talismans,
Yeah.
the talismans of intermetal.
The College of Creation lore expands.
And I think that there's something here that maybe connects to, yeah, like constructs. I mean, there's the plane of order,
Yep.
where constructs and things sort of hold the most sway as they are the most sort of logical,
Mm-hmm.
straightforward, and reasoned of creatures. And I'm not sure if this fits there or not. If we are indeed tying it to emotion.
Maybe it actually fits perfectly there in a world of
Hmm.
order where chaos is kind of eschewed away. What is more dangerous to their way of life than an unstable series of emotional paintings that is so opposite a construct? Maybe this is the thing that just takes Mechanus out. Maybe this is the
Huh.
thing that Mechanus keeps
Interesting.
locked away so it doesn't get out, so they can maintain their order.
That's interesting. Yes, I think this is quite interesting
I like that.
as a concept. So maybe this is indeed a gallery to our eyes, but perhaps to the eyes of those within the plane of Mechanus, it is
Potential destruction.
more a prison.
Yeah. Oh,
These things
is
are
it a
sort of like
punishment?
kept away and kept at bay so
Yeah.
that they do not disturb the carefully constructed order.
Right. Everything has a
So
place.
that
Everything
those
is. You can set your watch by Mechanus, but not these paintings.
So here's an interesting, and also very interesting things, right? Like this idea as well that you love to play around with of alignment,
Love
things
alignment.
like that, and messing with those ideas of alignment. Perhaps what this gallery, what these paintings do, is that they might take a construct who otherwise would, be fairly neutral, especially outside of the control of a decidedly aligned humanoid,
Mm-hmm.
right? A construct of construct, right? That would normally be just like straight neutral. There's no real alignment. There's just lawful, and that's it, right?
Yeah. Right. Complete order. Yeah.
But maybe these paintings do have some effect on alignment and can invoke emotions within constructs who otherwise would not be able to, be swayed by such strong emotions. These are paintings that could teach a robot to love.
It's very Giver, like the book The Giver, where
Hmm.
everybody sees in black and white,
Mm-hmm,
and
mm-hmm.
then by the end of the book, he sees like the apple, and he catches the flash of red of the apple, and it opens his mind to all of this new stuff that they're not allowed to perceive, that they've just been restricted from knowing or feeling for so long that they've just dissolved into this world of blacks and whites and grays. These paintings are the literal color, bringing
Yep.
feeling and emotion and chaotic sensory output.
Yeah, I think the question is the story here that we are constructing an effort to wrangle these paintings and return them back to their prison? Or is it to release them from their prison? Or because here's a thought that I just had because I have recently been playing a video game called Control. I'm not sure if you're aware
Yeah.
of it. It's within the like Alan Wake universe, but it's this very astral, super like Lovecraftian mystery stuff going on here. Very like there is a world beyond this world that most people cannot perceive or see, and
Mm-hmm.
there is a federal bureau that is there to deal with all of that stuff. So in that game, it is totally insulated into a single location where there's a threat strictly within, and it needs to be dealt with within and contained within. But it never, there is a risk theoretically of it getting out.
Sure.
But really, the biggest risk you're dealing with is just that it is a threat that is happening within and threatens to take over the whole of the Bureau. Perhaps this is a similar thing that we can create here of these things have been kept away, and that is how order is maintained, but something is behaving incorrectly.
What if the paintings and their colors are dictated not by the paint itself, but by what the paintings used to be? They are locked in wherever they're locked in because they are creatures that were transformed into paintings that were dangerous to the creatures of order. They were robots that experienced a spark of emotion at some point and were caught before they could do any damage and siphoned away to section 26 or whatever. It's a sub basement where they keep all of the problem constructs.
Yeah, I think that that's really fun and interesting. And then it's just the construction of,
What is the facility like in order to contain these unstable magical beings? So we are making a dungeon.
I think we might be making a dungeon, And I
Okay.
think that a core piece of this dungeon is there is definitely something to the idea that, like, this, I mean, this could be an almost gauntlet of challenges
Mm-hmm.
to be overcome in order to ensure the security of said
Right.
facility.
And it could be seen from both sides, right? Your goal in this module is to find the robots, apprehend them, and put them into their paintings. Or you could be a rogue robot trying to infiltrate this place to save your friend that was transformed into a painting, rightfully or wrongfully so.
This is very interesting, and you know what I've never seen is a module that provides options for both. Like, there aren't that many things that do that in explicit detail and create a different experience for either version.
I think the reason for that is that's a very video gamey type of thing,
Mm-hmm.
where you have games like Infamous. Are you familiar with Infamous?
Yeah, yeah.
Where there's the infamy system is you make choices along the way that sway you closer to more of a good, more of an evil type of character, and the game plays out based on those choices. And I think that while choices that are similar to that appear in TTRPG culture, it's harder to force your players down that path.
Right.
It's not as much of a binary choice as it would be in video games, and that makes it difficult to make a module where you're either the oppressor or the oppressed.
Even keeping to D&D world lore stuff, like Baldur's Gate 3 has the option to play as the Dark Urge, which is the you are pretty explicitly the villain of that side of the story.
Mm-hmm.
It's not done very frequently, and I think for good reasons of it is more difficult to manage. But I think one of the beautiful things about a TTRPG is that you as a player do have not simply the illusion of choice, or at least theoretically you don't simply have the illusion of choice, but you do have actual choice and actual agency.
Right.
The more we're talking about this, the more I'm realizing that, like, we are not going to come up with anything cohesive within the next 20 to 30 minutes.
No, certainly not. This is definitely the idea, though, right? Like, this is the idea.
And perhaps what we can come up with, at least the starting point and the point at which the branches become available,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, maintain the status quo to keep these things locked up, or attempt to undo the order that has been built.
Right. I 100% agree with you. It is not impossible, but quite difficult to maintain a full long-form campaign with a completely evil party, just because the reasons, right? At some point, you're going to find either above table or in the game a threshold where a true villainous entity would achieve a height that humans are not comfortable carrying that out, or there are enough heroic forces from your DM side that you're just going to go completely opposed. In this case, I don't know that either side truly is evil, because the Bureau is just order, right? They're not evil because they're not emotional beings. They have a task, and that is to apprehend creature A because of reasons. And then the flip side is you have become awakened, and your task is to free creature A because reasons. It's not necessarily a good force versus an evil force. And so this might be a little bit easier to balance both sides, easier to write both sides, because they're kind of the same path. All of the same areas can be traversed, just frontwards or backwards.
How do we feel about this? Because I just had an idea. If we recall back to your talismans of inner metal,
Okay.
those are items that infuse you with strong emotion and that gain strength within the emotion over time, right?
Mm-hmm.
What if those things made their way into the plane of order?
Yeah.
And I know I'm moving away from the idea of paintings.
Well, the paintings are the creatures, though, right? That's the goal.
Right.
That's the paintings are the MacGuffins. They've become the end goal.
So I wonder if perhaps our starting point is to take your talismans and expand them within the world and investigate how they begin to interact with the various places in the world.
The idea is the talent you as a player or a player character
Mm-hmm.
attunes to a talisman, and it latches on to an emotion that already exists within you, and it just heightens that emotion and brings it to the surface, and that's what gives you those extra abilities. What happens to the talisman if it latches onto a creature that has no innate emotion? Does it plant a seed and create a synthetic emotion?
That could be the idea. I mean, that could be one of the core sort of questions of the story here, is whether or not this emotion is real or synthesized, and whether or not that matters.
A talisman of inner metal would be the thing that could be powerful enough, if attuned for long enough, to create an actual emotion in a creature that doesn't have it. But at the beginning, it would be synthetic. So maybe it's both. Maybe the talisman adheres to something on accident and just sparks. He sees the flash of the apple, and then as this construct grows, it becomes a legit emotion over time because of the magic of the item.
Yeah.
Is this too cerebral? Are we getting too far into the weeds here?
I mean, I think we are, but I think that it was always going to be this way with this particular
It was
prompt.
fate.
But I think that
Yeah.
we have landed on something really interesting here,
I
which is that we
agree.
are doing a lot of world building here and not a lot of home brewing, but that's okay. I really like this idea. I especially like the idea that it sort of demands that this be like a mini campaign consisting of only Warforged.
Which I love that. I think that's so cool.
Gotta be constructs. Everybody's gotta be constructs.
Everybody's a construct.
But if you do that, right, you're starting to play with lots of interesting things here.
Mhm.
And I think that starting point is, what do these talismans do to a construct?
Well, let's go to the source. Centuries ago, the great cleric Robert Plutchik devised a new school of magic focused on the development and application of emotion. He saw that a creature's more intense feelings often led to external changes. For instance, a mother desperate to save her child could move an object 10 times her weight, or a nervous shop owner would develop an extremely acute sense of awareness. After many years of failure, Plutchik was able to isolate the raw power of such emotions and imbue items with it. He called his array of wearable items the Talismans of Inner Metal, 8 pieces of worn jewelry that invoked magic from across the spectrum of mortal emotion. The public was not ready to invest in his thoughts, however, and after his passing, his research was generally forgotten about. His 8 talismans were traded, sold, buried, or otherwise lost to time. All of these talismans are considered legendary wondrous items. If you're lucky enough to have found one, it requires attunement to use and grows in power the longer its attunement lasts. So I think the first question, actually, do all of these end up on the plane of order, or just one of them?
I wonder, though. I wonder if all of them should show up there at some point.
Are they, just a bundle, a package deal where all of them are shipped off on accident?
But I don't know. Perhaps it is just one. The sort of ripple effects of it,
Right.
are what are creating the trouble here.
Maybe it is joy. A topaz necklace of joy. Mechanically, that doesn't make sense, actually, now that I'm reading that. But from an emotional standpoint, it makes the most sense, I think. Maybe we do throw all of them in there. Maybe we do throw all of them in. So reading the description, after his passing, his research was generally forgotten about. His 8 talismans were traded, sold, buried, or otherwise lost to time. I mean, this is centuries ago, right? When he died.
Yep.
I'm assuming at the time of his passing, because nobody believed in his work, that all of them were together, right?
Sure.
He made these 8 things They were all in the same place. Like what happens when people die? All of their stuff just sits until it's bequeathed to somebody in his family or an apprentice or something. These are boxed up, shipped off to his nephew somewhere. Nephew doesn't want them, and for whatever reason, a physical package containing 8 super powerful artifacts ends up on the plane of order, all right next to each other. All 8 of them just become the problem construct. So somebody just gets nailed with all these emotions all at the same time.
That's interesting.
So they go from 0 emotions to a full spectrum of human emotion evenly at the same point. They just become more human in an instant.
Ooh. Okay. So now it feels like we've created Thanos. But hear me out. I mean, I think that we've landed on a core piece of this, I think.
Yeah.
Somebody else is also after these deviants or whatever you want to call them, right?
Yeah.
But in that particular case, it is to attempt to become human.
Right.
Ooh, okay.
I was just about to do that too. Let's see if we have the same idea. You go first.
The gallery is like museum and prison.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
It is holding cell and gallery. It holds this initial person or construct, this initial creature of order who was infused with these emotions. It was bad, figured it out, locked away the talismans. Talismans went missing like something, right? Talismans scattered to the wind somehow. Who knows how? We'll figure it out. This other construct now is also interested in getting these things. Maybe interested in your party getting these things for it. I don't know. What were you going to say? Because I didn't have a full idea there.
I was going to say, playing off of the idea of creating a module in 2 parts from 2 points of view. Same starting point as you. The creature's locked up, right? It takes on the power of all of these emotions, awakens, becomes the deviant construct out of order, apprehended, turned into a painting or several paintings. Maybe it's chunked for parts so it can't operate like normal.
We got an Exodia situation happening.
Created into a series of paintings, into a gallery of paintings. One of the points of view is your Thanos personality. Not necessarily evil, but in the sense that it is like in his universe, in Thanos' universe, he is the hero, right? He fully believes that his methodology is the one that will save the universe because of overpopulation or, overconsumption or whatever the case may be. This person is looking to, or construct, I assume, this construct is looking to find the talismans now for itself, because the initial creature didn't ask for it. They were just bestowed upon itself all this power and didn't know how to properly use it. Now, after decades and decades and decades, this other creature of order has researched these talismans and is very purposefully seeking them out to use them at their highest potential. You can either play as this creature, surrounding yourself with other constructs, or you can play as a party hired, like you said, hired by this creature to find the talismans for them. Shadow of the Colossus style, where you don't actually realize that the things you're searching for are not bad, but powerful and going into the wrong hands until it's almost too late.
It's got an aspect of Slugworth, but without the collusion. The story begins with your party presented as, with the need to secure something. Something has gone wrong at, one of the places where one of these paintings is held. You can go there and secure it. You are presented, though, in like a shady side alley, somebody else who says, actually, I will reward you greatly if you, instead of securing it, make sure it is not secured and give it to me.
Correct.
And then there's the choice to make. Say, are we going to do this? And as you go, maybe they learn more about what these things are. They start to perhaps experience them for themselves. There's some interesting ideas here. I think that 8 is a lot. As far as we have it now, does have kind of just the makings of an 8-part fetch quest. Ideally, we can, flesh it out so it doesn't feel quite like that. But I wonder if you can create the option to go with fewer of the talismans having been, brought here. Maybe 4, so you have 2 sets of opposites. Maybe 3, so you have this like triadic color wheel thing going on. Because I know we talked a little bit about your Pluchik wheels or your talismans, and not wanting to get too into the weeds about how these effects interact with each other. But maybe in a longer form narrative, you could tease all that out a lot more and be able to play with how these things interact with each other over the course of the story.
I think there's room for this to write out possibilities for all 8 of these and only use the ones that your players select. Because we talked about this when I originally made these, and then again during the compendium after I had edited all of them. These are things that your DM is going to bestow upon you, right? Based upon talks between DM and player, a whole number of different variables can go into which one goes to which player. I think that if we write out options for all of them, and then also include within the narrative of this module that you're only going to use a number of these equal to the players in your party based on their choices. It can be an above table talk, a very candid discussion between all the players at the table and the game master. Like, what do you want from the game? And that is part of your session 0 or part of your character creation. And that rolls right into scene 1 of this this creature tasking your players with whatever. I have these 3 things out there. I need you to go find them. Oh yeah, these curiously line up with the ideals of our characters. That's so strange.
When you play Curse of Strahd, there's a card reading that determines some of the core locations of key items within the narrative, and that will shift what is important in the story, right? It will shift what areas are prioritized and what are the things that like the party is going to want to explore. And a lot of DMs, will recommend, especially for that like you should be not leaving those up entirely to chance.
Right.
Because it is going to affect the way the story works. So like you can focus on certain areas, or enhance the story prioritization in a certain space or of a certain space that has certain themes, right? And I think in the same way you could do this with that. But I also love the idea that you were just sort of hinting at where, depending on the talismans, and maybe as the party actually gets them and becomes exposed to them, the world state changes, right? The world state shifts.
Yeah.
Instead of being, this like rigid, solid, ordered thing, to having more anger in it, or having more fear in it, or having more joy in it. And so that paint sort of begins to infuse the world, and therefore determines the story path that you and the players go down.
The game itself is the painting, and it's metaphorical paint. It's not physical paint. The whole thing is the magical
of the emotion infuses the world. This is a good starting point, and feels like we need to spend like 100 more hours working on it.
Right.
But I think there's something there, and I think we can come up with it. And I think that as soon as we have something that seems cool, I think we should bring it out to the patrons for some playtesting.
I agree. This is very cool. I do want to at some point do some more justice to the prompt, because I think the prompt itself is very cool, and eventually get to the point where there is a physical location with physical paintings.
Yeah.
I will stand behind the metaphor for now, though. I am fine with metaphorical paint.
I think we can make these things work in harmony for sure. I'm digging that. It also has the vibe of something like the Candlekeep Mysteries.
Yeah,
Where
yeah.
lots of these books also have, these sort of core ideas and themes around them, and usually have you in a, different location. Some of these books are portals to other locations, and it's sort of the kind of thing that I can imagine this being a really interesting set of almost one shots or one or two shots. These paintings, which I think we can nail down how exactly we describe them specifically as paintings. It could be this sort of set that then you could move around. You could run them all as one big thing, but we could even have them be sort of separate little adventures.
I think that is the way to go.
Yeah. So for now, I'd say we got a fun little starting point, and I guess we'll just leave it by saying look out for the first version of the first part of this. I'm sure we'll be sharing it with our listeners before anyone else. That's for sure.
Gosh, this is not at all what I expect. I didn't know what I expected. This is not anything close to what I would have predicted today would be.
We had a lot less of a framework going in, and I think we even have
that's true.
Only the barest bones of a framework coming out of it. But I think it is just a good example of how you can come into something having some sort of idea of what you're going to create, but neither of us pictured what we were going to end up with today. And I think that it is got a lot of potential.
Yeah, this is cool. I'm excited to work on this.
Me too. Well, we'll have to get to more collaborating off recording. But for now, Michael, I think it's time we actually start to work on something real. Shall we roll for next time?
Yeah, maybe it's something a bit more concrete for next week.
Let's hope.
Why don't you go ahead and roll? I will pull up our sheet here.
Excellent. Today, that is a 7.
A 7. Magical, uncommonly used weapons. So things like, they gave examples. Things like a sling, a net, a pike, or a blowgun.
Ooh, okay, yeah.
So I take this to mean things that do exist in the game that are often overlooked.
Yeah. Because I think that it is very common for folks to, when picking your weapon, you just see what your weapon proficiencies are and decide, oh, well, this is a D10 of damage, and so I'm going to pick that instead of perhaps a more interesting, flavorful weapon that might work better for you, but does a D6. I oftentimes get around this by saying, flavor is free. So, if you want to have perhaps a weapon that does a little more damage, or that, just aligns better with your proficiencies, but you want to flavor it as like a scythe because you're a farmer, fine. I myself have played a chef who used a shield, but I was like, well, this guy is probably not carrying around a shield, so it's just a pot lid, but it functions as a shield. So that's usually how I get around it. And I think also had a meat cleaver, which I think usually would be, you would think of that as maybe a dagger or maybe a hand axe, because of the size of it. Yeah. But, because of the proficiencies, I took a more powerful weapon and just flavored it the way that I wanted it. But maybe there's a better way around that. Maybe
Mhm.
maybe what we can uncover today or next week is another option.
I think so. I think this is a very interesting prompt. It's cool. It's something that we don't tackle very often. I think a lot of times when we've been tasked with making items, we tend to go non-damage dealing. Both of us enjoy a good support item. So this will be a nice push for both of us to make several damage dealing items that are also useful in other ways.
Yeah. I think my first step is going to be deciding which items I want to make changes to.
Yeah.
And then exactly how I want to make those changes.
I agree. I'm excited about this one.
Same.
This is gonna
Should
be
be good. Should be good. Well, Michael, thank you once again for potting with me.
Yeah, as always.
It was a very different kind of day, but I very much appreciated all the creative things that you came with. Is there anything you want to say to the people before we say goodbye?
I always have something that I want to say to the people before we say goodbye. Today is no different. I think it's been a moment since I've used this sign off, and I have used this one before. We've been doing this now. This is our 30th episode, and I just want to reiterate how thankful we are to all of you that are listening. Thank you for subscribing to the Patreon. Thank you for leaving reviews or comments. Thanks for sending in your prompts and submissions. We've had several people send in their own homebrew items to us, and we love seeing those. Just generally, as a blanket statement, let this be a very clear and very purposeful thank you to all of you that are listening. We appreciate it.
Massively. Couldn't agree more. Just your ears, your support, your sharing it. So very much appreciated. So thanks.
Absolutely. And thank you especially for sitting through kind of an unconventional episode here. Certainly not what we normally do. We broke the archetype a little bit today, but that's okay. Not all homebrew is going to be the same, and this is just going to be kind of a multi-episode prompt that we'll come back to time and time again in the future. So hopefully you keep up with that. Until then, and until next week, I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day, fantastic rest of your week. We will talk to you again next Monday. Goodbye. Hey everyone, Michael here. Thanks for listening to this episode of the College of Creation. If you want to see our creations from this episode and all of our past episodes, you can find those for free on our Patreon page. That's patreon.com/College of Creation Pod. If you feel like supporting us further, you can become a patron and access a few bonus recordings, like top 10 lists, D&D related games, and conversations that were cut from full episodes for time. If you have any questions or a homebrew prompt you'd like to see Dan and I tackle on the show, you can send those to collegeofcreationpod@gmail.com. And our intro and outro music is by Fuserwolf. You can check out his content on Bandcamp and Spotify. Again, thank you all so much for listening.